by companies, followed by stakeholder and participant discussion. Just a reminder, similar to other remote teleconferences that Pura hosts, while we are projecting on YouTube and we obviously are with you here, we do ask that you remember we have a court reporter with us, which means that I need for you to do a couple of things. Identify yourself by name and affiliation for clarity for the transcript, and also please refrain from using the chat function. It is not part of the official record. Any questions or comments do need to be vocalized at the appropriate time to ensure that they are part of the record. Following the presentation from the companies, we will turn first to questions from Pura staff. I do believe we will definitely have time to address questions from other stakeholders. So if you know that you're going to have questions for the EDCs following their presentation, you can get into the queue at any time by using the raise hand function. Again, I will turn first to Pura staff questions. Following the EDC's presentation and Q&A, we will open it up more broadly for other stakeholders to offer comment. I want to thank everyone for joining us this morning, and I will turn it over to our colleagues at the EDCs as we get your presentations pulled up. Whomever wants to kick off first is free to do so.
I'm getting that. Hold on one moment, please.
Okay, I'm seeing the slides. Morning, everyone. I'm John King from United Illuminating, here to kick off our presentation for a technical meeting on the annual Shared Clean Energy Facility Program, Year 7, docket number 250804. Next slide, please. Discussion topics that we will go over in this presentation are the Year 7 procurement prices, price caps, the bid preferences, as well as proposed programmatic changes for Year 7 of the program. Next slide. The EDCs are continuing to support their effort of using the same price cap setting methodology as described in the Year 6 SCEF final program decision. The established price cap setting approach allows for year-over-year analysis of the price cap effectiveness using the values derived from the same process. And this is primarily trending towards full subscription at both EDCs in Year 6 of the program. And maintaining the consistent methodology grants stakeholder visibility into expecting rates of return for better financial planning and any future project exploration. The EDC support one price cap for all project types and to continue to allow the carport canopy projects to bid above the standard price cap as indicated in Year 6 and current years of the program. Next slide. The SCEF Year 7 bid preferences, the companies recommend maintaining bid preference categories and amounts established as indicated in the Year 6 final decision in 240804. This has resulted in increased participation of the carport canopy project types in Eversource territory for Year 6 of the program. And both EDCs have had some significant or sufficient participation of the landfill brownfield preferences throughout the program years. Revisiting and potentially revising the bid preferences annually is counterproductive to program stability and does not allow for a consistent analyzation of data and participation and the impacts of the bid preferences. A consistent framework over multiple program years, as mentioned, again, with the price caps methodology as well, is essential to generating sufficient data to access to assess whether the preferences are influencing the project selection and encouraging participation from targeted customer classes and advancing Pure's broader policy goals. Next slide, please. Here I'm going to pass to Isabel Hazelwood at Eversource to go through programmatic changes.
Thanks, John. Yeah, we just had a few administrative suggested changes to the SCEF program rules. So the first one is there was a provision in the SCEF program terms and conditions that allowed subscribers to cash out their SCEF credit annually or at the termination of service. I think that kind of came as a carryover from our net metering policy, but in keeping with the intent of the SCEF program goals, which is to help achieve energy affordability with customer electric bills, we don't believe that there should be a cash out provision, and so we just wanted to make that clarifying change. And then the second programmatic change would be to incorporate a reference to the authority's decision in docket 250804 about the rules for complying with the Department of Agriculture. So we just wanted to add that as a footnote so that bidders applying to participate in the SCEF program would have a full reference for all of the regulations required. And I think that's it. So I'll toss it back to you, John. But I think that concludes our presentation.
Yep, thank you. That concludes our presentation.
Thank you. So I'd like to thank the EDCs for their presentation and time today. I would like to first turn to slide 3, please. If Ms. Lupoli could please pull up the slideshow. Thank you. So my first question, do the EDCs believe there are changed circumstances for the SCEF program in the upcoming program year, given the pending loss of federal tax credits? Why or why not?
Good morning, this is Katarina Miller. Can you please repeat the question? Just want to make sure that I address it.
Yes, do the
correctly.
EDCs believe there are changed circumstances for the SCEF program in the upcoming program year, given the pending loss of federal tax credits? And I know that changed circumstances are a requirement of statute for changing the SCEF price cap to a higher level.
Thank you for that question, first of all, and thank you for the opportunity to participate in this technical meeting. I think for us as the EDCs, we are aware that there has been changes implemented by SB4, the 25-173 Public Act. And there has been a proposed phase out when it comes to ITCs. However, I think the best question to answer that would be, the best parties to answer that would be probably the developers, because those will have the most information how much these ITCs will impact the development of the projects and their feasibility.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Does Eversource concur with that as well?
Yeah, I would agree with Ms. Miller. Our goal for for maintaining the SCEF program is obviously to see it successful, but also at minimal cost. And so I think that's part of the reason why we're suggesting maintaining the price caps, because we've had good participation thus far in the program. But in terms of the specifics of how the federal changes will impact specific project pricing, that's a question better targeted at developers.
Thank you, Ms. Hazelwood. Now, another question on this topic. I'm curious what the EDCs think about the extent that Connecticut ratepayers should be responsible for offsetting the loss of federal tax incentives for solar projects, including for SCEF.
Again, we have to be cognizant when it comes to the ratepayers and the increased cost that will be imposed by any type of caps, flexibility, or any type of bid preferences adjustment. So it really will depend on the analysis, and we actually are filing some price caps analysis that are coming up that are due tomorrow, that provide some feedback when it comes to any type of increases of pricing and the bid preferences. But again, we have to be cognizant that any type of increase will reflect negatively on ratepayers. But again, we will have to provide those analysis, and we will be happy to elaborate on that a little bit more. But I do want to add also that when it comes to the ITCs, those are the projects under the SCEF program are commercial projects, and those ITCs are extended until 2027, unlike for the residential program. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Now I'd like to turn to slide 5, please. So my first question for this slide, what potential downsides exist to allowing active SCEF program participants to receive cash payments? For example, could such payments affect participants' eligibility for other low-income programs?
Yeah, I can take that one. I think in general, yes, that's a concern. If we provide the SCEF credit as a cash payment, that could be counted as income. And I think I was actually just looking at our portfolio this morning of actively enrolled SCEF customers. About almost 90% of them are low-income customers. And so if you have an additional source of income, I can't recall the exact requirement for when you need to file a tax return on that income in terms of the dollar amount. But yeah, if it's an additional source of income, that could potentially affect their eligibility for other benefit programs that they participate in.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hazelwood. So another question for this slide. Have any SCEF program participants received cash payments to date? And if so, approximately how many?
We haven't had any customers request a cash out of their on-bill credit specifically, but part of the reason why we were proposing this change is because of the way our billing system functions, at times a customer may close their account, but it will stay active in our billing system, and when billing goes into close the account, they'll backdate it to the date that the customer requested or informed us that they had left the property. But for the period of time in between when the account was actually supposed to be closed and when it gets backdated, the SCEF credit is applied. And so in that regard, some customers can request a cash out of their account balance, and that would include the SCEF credit. So it hasn't been an issue that a customer is actively asking for, but it is something that has occurred. And, you know, the program rules also say customers should not receive a SCEF credit unless they're active, but just because of timing issues with the billing system and when we do those account closures, that was just something that was concerning to us. So we want to make sure that we have the ability to prevent the cash out of the SCEF credit, because at the end of the day, that is a cost that's funded by all ratepayers.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hazelwood. So I just have a couple of more questions. They don't reference a specific slide, but they do reference a written comment prompt that is due, I think, in a couple of weeks. So the first question, so the SCEF program currently limits most project sites to no more than 10% of land with slopes greater than 15% and prohibits grading to meet this requirement. So given the construction stormwater general permit already regulates slopes for SCEF projects, do the EDCs believe that this slope requirement remains necessary for the SCEF program? Why or why not?
The slope determination is actually provided by Connecticut Deep, and so therefore I believe it will be the best addressed by Connecticut Deep because of all of the documentation and research that the department does, and therefore I would refer to Connecticut Deep for answer.
Okay, thank you. Would Eversource like to add anything to that about whether slope requirements remain necessary in the SCEF program given the construction stormwater general permit requirements?
No, I would agree with Katerina. That's a deep requirement, and so I don't feel like we can really comment on whether or not that should continue to be a requirement.
Okay, thank you. And one more question on slope requirements, if the EDCs would like to add anything to this. Do the EDCs have any data or insights on whether the current SCEF slope requirements are hindering participation in the SCEF program?
We do not.
Okay,
We will
thank
be
you.
happy to, if you like us to provide some and research some of the data, we will be happy to do so and provide some feedback.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Miller. And those are all my questions. So again, I'd like to thank the EDCs for their time and presentation today. And that concludes authority staff questions. So I turn back to you, Attorney Fryer.
Thank you, Mr. Harpen. All right. I'd like to see if there's any questions for any from any of the stakeholders regarding the EDC's presentations. And the first hand that I saw up is from Kim White.
Hey, good morning. Kim White with OCC. I just have a really quick question to the EDCs. I think authority staff kind of covered my question, but I want to make sure I understood the answer correctly. You were talking about the cash out provisions. You said no active customer has ever requested to cash out, but that currently it's when a customer is closing their account that the cash out provisions have been implicated.
Correct. Yes.
Do you have any idea how many customers that is?
It's not a customer requesting a cash out specifically of the SCEF credit. It is I think it's probably less than 5 customers that we've had like permanently close their account since they were enrolled in the SCEF program. And it's simply due to, and I don't think this is an issue that's affecting UI, but for Eversource, sometimes what happens is a customer will move out of a property, but then they won't call us and tell us that they've moved out for like, let's say 2 months. And so from the SCEF side of things, that customer is still an active customer, and the SCEF credit is being applied to their account for those 2 months where they're not actually in that location anymore. And so when they call us to tell us they closed the account, the billing department will backdate their account closure to the date where they actually left. But because the SCEF credit was applied for those 2 months where the billing system didn't recognize that customer as having an inactive account, they could potentially receive their SCEF credit as a cash out.
Okay. Are there any costs associated with changing your billing system to not cash those out anymore? Like what are there costs associated with your proposal, basically, is what I'm asking.
No, there's no cost to remove that language. The cost to automate the removal of right now it's a manual process. So we need our SCEF team needs to be aware that that customer received a credit for 2 months where they were inactive and then manually reverse the credit to ensure that that customer doesn't get it cashed out. But in order to automate that process, yes, there would be a significant cost associated with that.
Are you proposing to automate the process, or are you proposing just to change the
No,
language?
we're just proposing to change the language to say that that is not that SCEF credit that was a non-bill credit is not eligible for a cash out, and that wouldn't cost us anything.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Yeah.
Do we have any more questions today? Not seeing any more questions. Move to the next item on our agenda, which is for public comment. And are there any comments that anyone would like to put on the record now? Okay, having heard no comments, then I think we'll move towards adjournment. Just as a reminder, the next item on the calendar appears to be the due date for written comments. That's October 2nd. And with that, I want to thank the EDCs for their presentation this morning, as well as for answering our questions. And seeing that there are no further comments or questions, we are going to adjourn, and I thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.